My family couldn't wait for my dying uncle to pass, but when the will was read, every jaw dropped. When Uncle Ray was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I remember sitting in the hospital hallway, watching the doctor's mouth move, but the words were far away, like they were floating underwater. Terminal. No cure. Months, not years. My heart broke not just for the man lying in that bed, but for what I knew was about to happen next. Uncle Ray wasn't just my uncle, he was the one who bought my school supplies when my dad lost his job, the one who showed up at my choir recitals when everyone else forgot, the one who called every single birthday. He never married, never had kids, but he had a heart that poured out for everyone. And maybe that was his mistake. The moment the diagnosis spread through the family group chat, compassion didn't follow, calculation did. My Aunt Rose was the first to show up at the hospital, arms full of fruit and fake tears. She hadn't visited him in over 2 years. Now suddenly, she was heartbroken. Cousin Felix started making awkward jokes like, Uncle Ray should leave the house to someone responsible like me. No one laughed, but he grinned like a lottery ticket had just landed in his lap. The worst part? Uncle Ray saw it all. He was sharp. The cancer hadn't taken his mind, just his strength. He'd lie in bed and smile at their rehearsed concern, not at their careful probing questions. But I knew him. I saw the sadness in his eyes. I started noticing how people were suddenly offering to help him with errands, banking, paperwork. One even asked to see his land documents under the guise of making things easier. It was disgusting. They were circling, waiting. I kept showing up just to sit beside him, to talk, or sometimes just to listen. No agendas. Just love. And I remember one day, as he stared out the hospital window, he said softly, "Death doesn't scare me. But watching people you love turn into wolves. That's what hurts." That was the moment I realized. This wasn't going to end the way anyone expected. It started subtly, little whispers behind half-closed doors, quick glances exchanged when Uncle Ray was too weak to notice. But I noticed. I heard them. One night, I walked past the guest room where Aunt Rose and Cousin Felix were staying while visiting Uncle Ray. The door was slightly ajar. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but when you hear your name and as you pause. "She's always hanging around Ray like she's his personal nurse," Aunt Rose muttered. Felix snorted. "Please. She's just hoping for a shout-out in the will." Huh. If there's any justice, that house goes to someone who'll actually use it. I mean, why wait? He's not coming back to it. We could fix it up now. Exactly. The land alone is worth a fortune. I felt sick. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. The next morning, they were back to acting broken-hearted. Aunt Rose cooked breakfast and spoon-fed Ray like she'd been doing it for years. Felix walked in with flowers and kissed Ray's forehead. The hypocrisy was suffocating. But what stunned me most was how Uncle Ray responded with kindness. Always kindness. He'd smile and say thank you. He'd ask how their children were doing. He even apologized once for being a burden. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him what they said. I wanted to drag them out and expose every cruel word. But I didn't. Because deep down, I wasn't sure if he didn't know or if he just didn't want to know. Some nights, I'd find him staring off, lost in thought. He once said to me, "You ever notice how people start showing up when there's something to gain?" I nodded, unsure of what to say. He looked at me for a long time and then added, "Don't worry. I have eyes." That's when I realized. Uncle Ray wasn't blind to their greed. He was watching. Quietly. Patiently. And maybe, just maybe, planning something they wouldn't see coming. I didn't visit Uncle Ray because of what he had, I visited because of who he was. Growing up, he was the only adult who ever treated me like I had something to say. When my parents fought or the world felt too loud, Uncle Ray's little apartment became my safe place. So when he got sick, I showed up. Not just once a week or for appearances. I came every other day, sometimes more. I brought groceries, cleaned his kitchen, helped organize his pills. Most importantly, I sat with him and listened. Uncle Ray loved to talk. He'd tell the same stories sometimes about his first job at the radio station, his road trip across 5 states, the girl he almost married. I never stopped him. I think he just needed someone to remember him, to hold his life in their hands one more time. One evening, I made us pepper soup, his favorite. He was weaker than usual but smiled when he tasted it. You know, he said slowly, spoon trembling slightly, funny how people only show up when they think you're about to leave. I froze. He looked up at me, eyes sharp, clearer than they'd been in weeks. I've never been more popular in my life, he chuckled softly, and yet I've never felt more alone. I didn't know what to say. I reached across and held his hand. He squeezed back, then let go and stared out the window. They all think I'm a dying fool. But fools don't take notes, do they? He said it so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. That night, as I helped him to bed, he patted my arm and said, "You remind me of who I was before the world got noisy." I smiled, but inside, I felt a strange weight settle in my chest, like I was carrying something I didn't understand yet. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought began to form, maybe Uncle Ray wasn't just watching. Maybe he was planning. It happened fast. One week Uncle Ray was laughing at old sitcoms and sipping tea from a straw, the next he was too weak to hold his head up. The cancer spread aggressively, taking more than just his strength. It took his voice, his appetite, and eventually, his light. The hospital room became a revolving door. Cousins I hadn't seen in years suddenly appeared with flowers and overdone concern. One brought a Bible he hadn't touched in a decade and stood by Ray's bed, reading verses in a voice too loud to be sincere. An uncle sat in the corner calculating medication doses on his phone like he was suddenly invested in science. They weren't there for him. They were there to be seen being there. I caught snippets of their whispers in the hallway. Did Ray ever mention if the house is fully paid off? Do you think he has stocks? I heard he worked in media for years. I hope he remembered who really cared for him. We were family long before that little golden boy started hovering. By golden boy, they meant me. Ray, barely conscious most days, would sometimes open his eyes and glance around the room. I couldn't tell if he was aware, but one day, as a cousin wiped a fake tear, I swear I saw a flicker of amusement in his tired gaze. The doctors said he could go at any time. On one of those heavy nights, I stayed after everyone else left. I held his hand and whispered, "I'm sorry they're like this." His lips moved. Just barely. I leaned close. "They'll learn," he breathed. Then he slept. The next morning, he was gone. Uncle Ray planned his own funeral. Every detail. From the jazz band playing "What a Wonderful World" to the sleek black casket with chrome handles. He paid for it all in advance down to the last flower arrangement. It was his last act of control, and honestly, it was beautiful. Too beautiful for the people who showed up. Everyone came dressed in their Sunday best, faces long and tragic, but I knew most of them were acting. A few cousins were crying like they'd lost a father. Funny they hadn't visited him once in the last month. Aunt Lillian wore black lace and sunglasses and kept dabbing dry eyes with a tissue she never once replaced. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching. People didn't whisper condolences, they whispered questions. When's the will being read? Is the lawyer here today? I heard he updated it last month. Did anyone see what he signed? They hovered like they were waiting for a buffet to open, not burying a man. One uncle actually leaned over and asked me if I thought Ray had offshore accounts. Offshore accounts. I felt sick. When it was time to lower the casket, the sky opened up with a light drizzle. People gasped like it meant something spiritual. I just closed my eyes. Not because I was praying, but because I couldn't look anymore. Ray was gone. And all they wanted was what he left behind. The room was tense, every seat in the lawyer's office taken, every eye sharpened by greed. Dressed like they were attending a gala instead of a legal formality, my relatives smiled politely but shifted in their chairs like children waiting for candy. The lawyer, a soft-spoken man named Mr. Green, walked in with a briefcase and a small, sleek laptop. No papers. Just a USB drive. Mr. Raymond Elijah left specific instructions, he said, plugging in the drive. You'll hear everything. From him. The room fell into a thick silence as the screen lit up. Uncle Ray appeared, thinner than I remembered, but with that same sly, knowing smile. He sat on a hospital bed, a blanket over his legs, and a Bible by his side. If you're watching this, he said, I'm gone. Hopefully peacefully and hopefully with less drama than I suspect is about to unfold here. A few people chuckled awkwardly. Ray's tone changed. I spent my life helping others. And while I'm not perfect, I always believed family was sacred. Sadly, in my final days, I saw a different side of it, one that treated my sickness like a countdown to riches. He paused, leaned forward slightly. To those who visited out of love, thank you. You know who you are. To those who showed up to make sure I was really dying. Enjoy the silence. Gasps echoed. Aunt Lillian's hand flew to her chest. Cousin Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I have a partner. Her name is Nadia. We've been together privately for over a decade. We have a son, James. He's 15. Everything I own, homes, investments, retirement funds, will go to them. Because while some of you waited for my death to benefit, they gave me something to live for. The room erupted. What? Who the hell is Nadia? He had a son? Chairs scraped the floor. Voices raised. Someone knocked over a water bottle in rage. Aunt Lillian was shouting something about manipulation and tests for authenticity. Mr. Green calmly waited. When the room calmed down, he cleared his throat. There's one more item. He reached into his briefcase and handed me an envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note and a check. The note read, You never asked for anything. You just showed up. That meant everything to me. This isn't much, but I hope it gives you freedom to pursue whatever life you choose. Thank you for loving me without a price tag. Uncle Ray. The check was real. 5 figures. Enough to start fresh. Not millions. But it felt heavier than the entire estate. I wept not because of the money, but because even in death, Uncle Ray knew exactly who everyone truly was. The office emptied in waves. Some stormed out shouting, others slinked away silently, faces pale with disbelief. One cousin even threatened to take this to court, as if entitlement could be legislated. But me? I couldn't move. I sat there, envelope still open in my lap, Uncle Ray's letter trembling in my hands. I wasn't crying out of joy. There was no joy in watching people unravel over a man they barely grieved. I wept because he deserved better than this. The lawyer gently touched my shoulder. He spoke highly of you, he said. Said you reminded him of himself. Before the world taught him to guard his heart. I nodded, unable to speak. Outside, the sun shone like nothing had happened. Like the world didn't just witness the exposure of a family's true face. In the weeks that followed, the drama continued. Legal threats flew. Rumors spread. Some relatives swore Ray had been manipulated. Others quietly tried to reach out to Nadia and James, hoping to reconnect. But the will held strong. Nadia had no interest in entertaining vultures. Ray didn't just leave behind assets, he left a legacy, carved into every choice he made in those final months. He had seen them. And still, he chose kindness over confrontation. Grace over gossip. Clarity over confusion. His final words in the video still echo in my mind like a whisper across time. Character is everything. Money reveals it. That was his true inheritance, one I carry more dearly than any sum. And as I walked away from it all, heart heavy but head high, I knew that in a world obsessed with wealth, Ray gave me something rarer. the courage to value love over gain, and the reminder that real riches are revealed in how we treat others when there's nothing to gain.